When I was about in middle school, my family moved into an old 3-bedroom farmhouse. It had a barn where the driveway stopped. The house was on the right-hand side facing the road. On the right side of the house was a garden full of every color daffodils and graveyard markers that had been used in the perimeter of it. The large backyard was mostly field with a brook on the right, behind the garden. The shed was located at the far left of the yard before it met the trees. My sister and I shared the second floor. I'd have to walk through her room at the top of the stairs to get to my bedroom door. The only heat source for my room was a 10x10 grate in the floor above the kitchen. This will be important information for later. In the middle of the right wall of my bedroom was a small door for eaves access where I'd store my summer, winter clothes in bins. The wall had a small rectangle of wood nailed on to keep it latched shut. This latch wasn't floppy and you'd have to put your weight into the door to be able to latch it. At the bottom of the stairs was a small bathroom. When you were in there with the door open, you could see the stairs and most of the hallway from the medicine cabinet mirror. To the right of the stairs is the back door that leads to the deck and backyard. Behind the staircase is the basement door that led to a partially dug out, creepy dirt basement. Past the bathroom is the living area and wood stove on brick between the kitchen and living room. Off the kitchen is a small bedroom where my younger brother slept. Between my brother's door and the kitchen was the front door leading to the driveway. Story number 1. One day I wake up and head downstairs to make some food since my mom and her boyfriend had already left for work that day. As I sit down at the kitchen table that's facing the living area, and I can see that the basement door isn't latched. It has one of those sliding locks, so I know it can't be opened from the other side or easily come undone on its own. I figured my mum's boyfriend had been down there at some point in the night to check on the breakers or furnace for whatever reason. Once I have finished my cereal, I decided I better get dressed so I can go check on the rabbits and ducks we had in a hutch and old horse stall in the small barn. As soon as I open my bedroom door to enter, something feels off. I feel like I am being watched as I gather my clothes to go get changed in the bathroom instead. When I turn to leave, I notice the little door isn't latched and it's sitting the tiniest bit open, just the same as the basement door had been not minutes before. I thought I hadn't opened that door since I had put my bins in it a few days prior, and I knew I had latched it because I remember how much effort it took for me to figure out how it closes properly. I figured, like the basement door, maybe my mum's boyfriend had needed to see some wiring in there at some point the night before and I just didn't wake up when he had been in there. Once the day was over and mum's boyfriend came home from work, he shouted to me through the vent if I had been in the basement today, as if I like to secretly explore when no one's home. He started scolding me and telling me how I shouldn't leave that door open since it lets all the heat out and we don't want people to break in easily if that door is not kept locked. I interrupted him, saying I had found it open when I got up that morning and thought he had left it open before work, and I asked why he needed to get into the small door in my room and if he can latch the door next time. He says, "Oh, weird. Next time you see it open, let me know so I can make sure the locks aren't broken." Story number 2. It's another Friday and I'm getting ready for school. I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth when I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. Standing there staring into the mirror, I see a translucent woman with dark hair, in a white nightgown, walk behind me from the living room, down the hall and up the stairs. She disappeared 3/4 the way up, but the hairs on the back of my neck and back were still standing straight up. Skipping the makeup part of my morning routine because I didn't want to see anything else making eye contact with me in that mirror, so I rushed through the rest of the way to get ready so I could be outside early to catch the bus for school. On my way out the front door, I hear some definite boot steps getting increasingly louder overhead and coming my way. They got louder and louder as they approached, and the closer I got to the door. I'm midway through a panic attack when my bus squeaks to a stop in front of my driveway, so I run towards it in hopes of disguising my out of breath and sweaty state. Story number 3. Monday went by like any other ordinary day. Went to school, stayed after to complete some credits I'd need to graduate, and generally there was nothing special going on. I came home, and as soon as I walked in the front door I'm greeted by my very confused mother sitting at the kitchen table. She says she had thought I was already home, so I explained that I had been staying at school a little later so I could make up some school work. And that if she needed me to be home at a certain time that I could do that instead. With a slight look of fear she goes on to tell me that when she got home someone greeted her in my voice from the vent. The exact words were, "Hi, how was your day?" It's exactly the phrase I had used countless times when I'd hear my mother come through the front door after work, since I would stay in my room listening to my iPod or napping until someone else was home. My mother then tells me that after she heard what she thought was me and without a response back she decided to go upstairs to see what I was up to. To her surprise, shock and horror, she was alone. That's when she sat back down at the table to enjoy a snack, thinking she just needed to eat something, when I walked through the door. I'm not sure what's more creepy, something in my house that likes to mimic me when I'm not home, or the fact that the voice came from my bedroom. Story number 4. So I walk over to the barn to feed and water the 4 ducks and 3 rabbits. The bunnies seem a bit frightened as I slowly approach, quickly hopping from one end of the hutch to the other, and the ducks were all quivering, huddled together in the far left corner of the horse stall. As soon as I finish distributing the flake of hay between them I start to feel eyes boring a hole in between my shoulders. The only way I could be stared at from that angle is if someone was upstairs. The rickety hay loft that lay empty aside from burned candles, a table and chair from the 50s. The stairs came down 2 feet to the left of the rabbit hutch, so I got the hint that whatever made the animals freak out is probably still up there. As I ascend the stairs the floor starts to come into view. What I see next not only confuses me but is so terrifying. There's a 3-year-old blonde boy with ice-cold, bright blue eyes, a bowl cut, wearing overalls, a plaid shirt with work boots on. He was crouched and grinning this horrible malicious grin right in my face as the floor comes into view. I hopped off the steps in a heartbeat, and my first thought is that some neighbor's kid had wandered into the barn, but I hadn't seen any little kids on our street since we moved in a few months ago. Having a 3-year-old up there where the floor is only half boarded and the rest dropped off into the 1-bay garage area below is realistically scary, so I thought I should peek up there again to see if I could coax him down so he could show me where he lived. As soon as I had gathered myself, I walked back up the stairs with a little more big sister energy than before, and I found myself alone. There was no other way out of there, and I know I hadn't seen this kid leave. Being a little on edge, I make sure the animal cages are secure before leaving in case that kid is the one who likes to open locked doors. About a week later my mom is halfway in her car that's parked near the front door, trying to clean it out so she can vacuum it. It's pretty sunny outside and there is no wind. The section of driveway the car was on is really level. My mom was bent way down grabbing some trash from under the front seats when she heard some giggling around her car. Thinking it's my younger brother, she pays no mind until she feels the car door being slammed full force on her legs. When she spun her head around real quick to catch the culprit, she had seen the same 4-year-old boy I had seen in the barn. I hadn't told her about him since he had disappeared on me, and I thought I was just seeing things. As my mom hurriedly heads back inside away from the scene, my brother and I asked what had happened since we knew she had been cleaning her car out. She said nothing. I just thought you guys were outside, but I guess not, and that surprised me. I knew by the look on her face that she had seen something out there. So I wait for my brother to go back to his room to play his DS to share my tale of the kid. She nods, then steps out onto the stoop and shouts, "You may not follow us inside because you are not allowed in this house." Then shuts and locks both the screen door and the main door. As soon as the big door is locked, we hear the metal of our screen door being slapped and banged on a few times, but only 2 feet or so off the ground. That night while Mom made dinner we all sat down to talk about what we all had apparently experienced. I go first with the whole barn story and my mom looked terrified. She looked me dead in the eye and asked if I had invited that kid inside. I said no, of course not. I couldn't find him to see which neighbor he belonged to. She nodded as she gave the pass to a stir. My sister chimes in and tells us about the time she went to take her daughter for a walk. She was in a driveway getting the stroller set up so she could put her daughter, who was in her infant car seat on the ground, onto it. As she picked up her car seat and was about to click in and let go, the stroller flung forward 10 feet uphill. Stunned with her daughter unharmed and car seat still in her hand, she looks over at some quiet childish giggling only to see that boy grinning at her then disappearing into thin air. At that we decided it would be best to not go into the barn or for walks alone, and we would under no circumstances try to communicate or invite that boy in the house. Story number 5. Today had been a longer than usual day at school and I had been battling with depression since my bestest friend had gone to doggy heaven. Laying in bed since I got home from school so I could listen to music on my iPod and be alone. Did the usual and went downstairs for dinner and chores, then headed back to bed. Very tired. I laid there with the music up so loud you could definitely not hear anything else and everyone around you could hear faint music. I start to hear yelled whispers of a male voice saying "cut yourself" repeated over and over along to the chorus of one of the songs. I rip my earphones out and, nothing, silence. I rewind the song and listen to it all the way through one more time and nothing. With my heart pounding in my chest and the adrenaline starting to fade, I fell right to sleep. Awakening suddenly, my eyes pop open and I'm feeling watched. Looking straight at the ceiling until I can feel out where in the room the feeling was emanating from. I scan from my feet down to the end of the bed, the right corner of my room next to the window, then in front of my wardrobe to the left of the window. I blinked fast so nothing had the chance to move in front of my vision. I hadn't wanted to see something sitting in the chair to the left of my wardrobe and facing my bed, so I hesitated at looking in that direction. I could feel the overwhelming tension as I dart my eyes real fast over the chair, but to my relief there was nothing there. I suddenly felt really exhausted from what I had just gone through and decided to roll over onto my side, and as my eyes went with my body I saw, standing over me was the black outline of a man in a hooded cloak bent slightly over me. Instant terror radiated through my body and instinct took over, so naturally I pulled my blanket over my face. After what felt like an hour but must have only been seconds, I removed the blanket from my sight. The entity had gone from slightly bent over to reaching out for my face. White hot fear shot through me as I swiped at the air without looking from the safety of my warm bed, and when I finally glanced over, the figure turned and walked out of my bedroom. Not wanting to see anything else creepy that night, I pulled the blanket back over my face and stayed there until bright sunlight filled my bedroom. I had seriously thought my sister was either snooping in my room or trying to creep me out, but when I brought it up she seemed really concerned with what I had experienced. Besides, she reminded me that I always and no matter what, sleep with my bedroom door closed. So unless my sister could also walk through shut doors without a sound, then it couldn't have been her.